Navy SEAL laughed at her gear. Then Shadow Actual made every radio in the base go silent. He laughed the second he saw her kit. Somebody call the museum, Chief Petty Officer Cole Draper said, loud enough to carry across the whole motor pool. One of their exhibits wandered off. The staging base sat at the dead end of nowhere, a fenced sprawl of hangars and heat, gravel that ate boots, air that tasted like diesel and dust. Draper stood with 3 of his teammates near a stack of hard cases, all of them wrapped in the newest gear the Navy could buy, plate carriers still stiff from the box, rifles wearing optics that cost more than a used car. Then she walked past. A woman in a plate carrier faded to the color of old bone, a rifle with the bluing worn to silver at every edge. Boots scuffed down to the leather, a helmet with a strip of gray tape over a cracked mount. Draper pointed. His buddy, Petty Officer Vince Holloway, snorted, careful. Chief, thing might fall apart if she sneezes. 2 mechanics looked up and grinned. Maya Reyes said nothing. She adjusted a strap and kept walking. What Draper didn't know was that the woman he'd called a museum piece answered to a call sign that lived inside his own team's war stories. The ghost who talked a pinned-down element off a burning rooftop years before he ever earned his trident. What Holloway didn't know was that by nightfall, every radio on the base would go dead silent the instant she keyed her mic. But for now, she just cinched the strap tighter and disappeared through the hangar door. What none of them noticed was the old master sergeant behind the arms room counter. When Maya passed, he straightened like a rifle coming to present. He opened his mouth. Then, catching something in her eyes, he closed it again and said nothing at all. 9 hours earlier, Maya Reyes had woken on a cot in the dark, and the first thing she reached for was a photograph. It was creased soft at the corners from years of being carried. A girl, 7 years old, gap-toothed, holding up a drawing of a stick figure woman with the word Mom in wobbly capitals above it. Maya held it in the blue pre-dawn light, the way some people hold a rosary. Then she tucked it into the chest pocket over her heart, where it always rode. The cot was hers for another day. Maybe she made coffee from a packet and drank it black and lukewarm, sitting on the edge of the frame with her elbows on her knees, listening to the bass wake up around her. She was 38. She felt older some mornings and younger on the bad ones. Her daughter's name was June, and June was asleep in a house 11 time zones away, in the care of Maya's sister, believing her mother did boring safety work for the government. That was the story. It was easier than the truth, and the truth had a way of following you home. She field-stripped her rifle out of habit more than need, laying the parts on a clean rag in a row she could have assembled blind. The weapon was old. People always noticed that first. The finish was gone at the muzzle and the mag well, and everywhere a hand or a wall had touched it 1,000 times. She could have drawn a fresh one from supply any day of the week. She never did. Every scratch on it was a place she'd been and come back from, and there weren't many people left who could say the same about those places. New gear was loud. New gear caught light and snagged on door frames and told the world you hadn't learned yet what mattered. Her kit had learned. So had she. There was a second reason, one she didn't say out loud. The strip of tape on her helmet had 4 letters written in fading marker, D-A-N-E. Her husband's kit had said the same. He'd worn it on the rooftop, the one the younger guys still told stories about, the night a whole element should have died, and only most of them did. Dane hadn't come home from that roof. His plate carrier had. She'd worn its color ever since, the way you keep a light on in a window for someone who isn't coming back, but might. At 0600, a runner found her with a folder, thin, sealed, stamped with a clearance most people on this base would never hold. She read it twice, closed it, and sat very still for a moment. Then she went to find breakfast, because the mission wouldn't care whether she'd eaten, and she'd learned a long time ago to take care of the small soldier before asking anything of the big one. She didn't tell the men in the chow line who she was. She never did. She let them see a tired woman with old gear and let them decide the rest. People always decided the rest. It saved her the trouble of explaining, and it told her, faster than any file, exactly who a man was when he thought no one important was watching. Draper, she already knew, was going to be a problem. He found her at the zero range an hour later. She was prone in the dirt, unhurried, sending rounds downrange in a rhythm slow enough to look lazy to anyone who didn't understand it. Draper walked up behind her with Holloway and a coffee, boots crunching loud on purpose. "You lost, ma'am?" he said. "Contractor Lane's back by the offices. This is a shooter's range." Maya sent her last round, safed the weapon, and rolled to look at the target through her spotting scope. One ragged hole. She'd put 10 rounds through the same tear at 300 meters. She said nothing about it. She just started gathering her brass. "She's collecting the shells," Holloway said. "That's adorable. You reload those at home, sweetheart?" "Habit," Maya said, her first word to either of them. She left it there. A young combat medic named Diego Marsh had been watching from 2 lanes over. He waited until Draper wandered off, then crouched beside her and looked at the single hole in her target for a long moment. "That's not," he started, then thought better of finishing it. Instead, he pulled out his phone and showed her a lock screen photo, a toddler in overalls, mid-laugh, covered in what looked like spaghetti. "My boy," Diego said, a little embarrassed. 10 months. His mom passed. Just me and him, now. I keep his picture up so I remember why I'm being careful out here." He glanced at Maya's chest pocket, at the corner of a photograph barely showing. "You too, huh? Me too," Maya said, and for the first time that day something in her face softened. 2 single parents in a war zone, recognizing each other. "Take care of the small soldier, Marsh, then the big one." "Yes, ma'am," he said, and didn't know he'd just been given the only order that would matter to him for the rest of his life. That afternoon, the mission brief filled the operations tent. 20 operators, planners, air, a colonel from higher on a screen. Draper had a front seat and an opinion about everything. When Maya slipped in at the back and leaned against a tent pole, he twisted around in his chair. "Sir," he said to the room, loud, "who cleared the contractor for the brief? This is need to know." The planner opened his mouth. On the screen, the colonel's face did something complicated. Before either could answer, the radio on the plans table crackled, and a voice from the regional command net said, "All stations, be advised. Shadow Element will have ground force command for tonight's tasking. Confirm receipt." Draper turned back around, satisfied he'd made his point, and didn't give the word shadow a second thought. He'd heard it his whole career the way you hear a saint's name, a story, a legend, a thing that happened to other people. It never once occurred to him to wonder where the legend was standing right now. Maya wrote 3 lines in a notebook and said nothing. The plan on the board was aggressive and wrong. Draper's team was to hit a compound from the front, fast, loud, the way he liked it. Maya listened to the whole thing, then walked to the map and put one finger on a dry wash behind the objective. "The front's a funnel," she said. "They'll have it ranged. Come in low through here, from the back. Split the element, and you own the roofs before anyone downstairs knows the door's open. Her voice was quiet and certain, the voice of someone reading a book she'd already finished. Draper laughed. The mannequins got a plan. A couple of guys laughed with him. "Ma'am, I've kicked more doors than you've had hot meals. We go in hard, from the front, like men. Men who go in the front through a ranged funnel come home in bags," Maya said. Still quiet, or they don't come home at all. I've carried enough of them. You've carried. Draper stood up, and the room got the kind of quiet that comes before something breaks. "Lady, I don't know who let you in here, but you don't get to stand at my map and talk about carrying my brothers. Stay back tonight. Watch the big kids work. Better yet, go home. Go home." The two words she'd said to herself 1,000 times on 1,000 nights, looking at a photograph in the dark. Maya felt them land. She thought of June's gap-toothed grin, of a stick figure with Mom written over it, of a house with a light in the window. For one long second she wanted, more than she'd wanted anything in years, to simply be that woman. The one who got to go home, who wasn't the last name whispered on a bad net, who wasn't the reason a rooftop full of men made it to the extract and one man didn't. She capped her pen. She picked up her notebook. She looked at Cole Draper the way you look at someone you already know you're going to have to save, and she said nothing at all. Then she walked out into the dust to check her kit, because the mission wouldn't care about any of it, and the only thing that had ever answered "go home" for her was the work. What Draper didn't see, as the tent flap fell shut behind her, was the old master sergeant from the arms room in the corner of the ops tent, watching her go, shaking his head slowly like a man watching a storm he'd been warned about walk calmly toward a town that hadn't. In 4 hours, everything Cole Draper thought he knew was going to come apart over an open radio net, in front of everyone he'd ever tried to impress. And he had no idea it was coming. At 2200, the base went to red light and low voices and the particular electricity of men about to do a dangerous thing. Draper's team staged at the birds, kit rattling, faces painted, riding the good clean adrenaline of the young and certain. In the Joint Operations Center, screens glowed blue over rows of headsets. Somewhere overhead, aircraft turned lazy circles no one on the ground could hear. The net came alive. "All elements, this is Overlord," said the regional command station. "Comms check, then we pass control." "Reaper report, Overlord, Reaper ready," Draper answered, cool and easy, playing to the room. "Copy, Reaper. Air, report ready. Air reported ready. All stations, be advised, ground force command for tonight passes now to Shadow Actual." A pause on the net. "Shadow Actual, Overlord. Confirm you have control." Silence. Draper smirked and keyed up. "Overlord, Reaper, who's Shadow Actual? We got a ghost running this or a person?" He never got an answer from Overlord. Instead, from a headset in the corner of the jock, the corner where a tired woman in old gear had been sitting so quietly that half the room had forgotten she was there, a voice came up on the command net. Level, unhurried, the voice of someone reading the last page of a book she'd written herself. "Overlord, Shadow Actual, I have control." Every radio on the base went silent. Not the ordinary silence of a lull. The other kind. In the jock, a calm sergeant froze with his hand halfway to a dial. Two planners turned in their chairs at exactly the same moment. On the flight line, a crew chief pulled one side of his headset off his ear and stared at the speaker like it had spoken his mother's name. And in the belly of the lead bird, Cole Draper sat very still. Because the voice that had just taken command of his mission, the voice every man on that net had gone quiet to hear, was the voice of the woman he had called a museum exhibit that morning. Then the old net came alive again, but different. Different the way a church gets when the person you've only ever heard about walks in the back door. Somewhere in the stack, a senior chief keyed up without being asked. Reaper, Reaper, you copy who that is? His voice had gone rough. That's the one who walked Talon Element off the roof at Kashan. 9 men off that roof, one at a time, on the radio, while it burned. That's Shadow. That's her. In the Bird, one of Draper's own men whispered it, the story he'd told a dozen times at a dozen bars. The way you tell a myth, the ghost on the roof. And now the myth's finger was on the map, and it had been right about the wash, and Cole Draper's mouth had gone dry. Reaper, Shadow Actual, Maya said, and her voice didn't have 1 gram of gloat in it. Belay the front, move to the wash, the one behind the objective, split your element, take the roofs first. You'll own the compound before the door downstairs knows it's open. Execute. For 1 heartbeat, Draper thought about arguing. Then he looked out the open ramp, at the dark shape of the objective, and the long, ranged killing lane of the front approach, and he keyed his mic, and every ounce of the swagger was gone from his voice. Shadow Actual, Reaper, moving to the wash. Copy all. It went clean. It went the way the woman with the old gear had drawn it on the board, the roofs taken silent and fast, the compound folded before it woke. No ranged funnel, no bags. 20 minutes later, when a room the team hadn't briefed lit up unexpectedly, and Draper's voice climbed half an octave. It was Maya's voice that came back down the net, flat and steady, walking him left, walking him through it, getting his whole element back on the birds with everyone breathing. Reaper, Shadow Actual. Good work. Come home. Come home. She'd said it to him without a trace of what those words cost her. The birds lifted, and Cole Draper sat in the dark with his heart still going, understanding for the first time in his career exactly how little he'd known that morning. He found her on the flight line after debrief, when the others had peeled off. She was breaking down her kit by red light, unhurried. The same as always. He stood there a while before he could get it out. You could have told me, he said, at the map. You could have shut me up in front of everyone. Why didn't you? Maya looked at the strip of tape on her helmet. DANE. Then she looked at him. Because the guys who need to say it out loud, she said, are usually the ones who haven't carried anyone yet. I figured you'd find out soon enough what the job actually costs. She touched the tape once. Lightly. The last time somebody talked an element off a roof, I lost the person who taught me how. I've worn his colors ever since, so I never forget what going in loud through the front buys you. That's why the gear's old, Chief. It's not a museum. It's a memorial. And it's the only thing that ever kept his team, your legend, alive long enough to become one. Draper had no words. For once in his life, that was the right response. But the night wasn't finished with him. Because by the time the sun came up, 3 things were going to happen. A conversation with the Command Master Chief, a story that would follow him the length of his career, and a choice he'd have to make about the kind of operator he wanted to be, and only one of them would turn out to be a punishment. By 0700, the story was everywhere. That's how it works on a small base. What happens on an open net at midnight is common knowledge by breakfast. The version that spread wasn't cruel. Exactly. It didn't need to be. Draper called Shadow Actual a museum piece to her face. Then, she saved his whole element on the radio. It told itself. Men who'd laughed with him in the motor pool found reasons not to catch his eye in the chow line. The Command Master Chief called him in for a conversation that lasted 11 minutes and left Draper's ears burning, not about the mission, which had gone perfectly, but about the mouth and the assumptions behind it, and what a leader is actually supposed to look for when someone walks past who doesn't shine. Holloway got the quieter version of the same. He'd laughed the loudest, and now the room laughed a little at him, and no one bothered to explain why they'd stopped saving him a seat. Cruelty, it turns out, is contagious, but so is the cold that comes after it, and he sat with it alone. Maya never said a word about any of it. When someone told her Draper had been dressed down, she nodded once and didn't smile. "I hope it takes," was all she said. Then she did something no one expected. She asked the command master chief to let her run a 2-day close quarters block before her rotation ended, and she asked for Draper by name, not to bury him, but to teach him. The best operator she'd ever seen humbled the same way once, she said. It was the only thing that ever made him great. 3 weeks later, she was home. June came off the school bus at a dead run and hit her at the waist, and Maya went down on one knee in the driveway and held on, and didn't let go for a long time. The old kit was zipped into a bag in the back of the closet, where it belonged between the times it was needed. On the kitchen table, unwrapped now, sat a small, heavy thing Draper had pressed into her hand on the flight line the morning she left. A challenge coin, worn smooth, that had been his mentor's. The senior chief from the net, it turned out. The one who'd gone rough, voiced saying that's her. On the back, Draper had scratched 2 words with a nail. "Thank you." "What you looking at, Mom?" June asked, climbing into her lap, all elbows and cereal breath. "A coin a friend gave me," Maya said. "Is he nice?" Maya thought about a loud man on a motor pool learning, the hard way, to go quiet and look closer. "He's getting there," she said. "Some people do." That night she pinned the photograph, the gap-toothed girl, the stick figure, the wobbly mom, to the corkboard by the door, where the light stayed on. Diego Marsh texted a picture of his boy asleep, spaghetti-free for once, with 3 words underneath, "Small soldier down." Maya sent back a single line. "Then rest the big one." June was already asleep against her shoulder. Outside, the porch light burned steady into the dark, the way it always had, for the ones who came home and the one who never would. It wasn't a happy ending, exactly. Those don't come in this line of work. But it was a real one. A light in a window. A small soldier's safe. A loud man learning to listen, and an old set of gear resting easy in the dark, waiting, the way the good ones always do, for whenever the world went quiet and needed a voice steady enough to bring everybody home.